Yo, yo, yo. Testing, testing. Death Star works. Welcome to live stream. Has been a while. Although did one with PokerJuice, but besides that one, has it been almost a month since I last streamed? And let me see, we have that. There, let's take it away. So, what we're going to do today, or what I'm going to do, is just use PokerJuice to figure out one spot that gave me doubts while I was playing a couple of days ago. So, back to streaming business. Hopefully we'll be streaming a lot more in following days and weeks and months. But let's start. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then you missed the live stream. So definitely consider following my Twitch account and following my Twitter, because that's where you get the notifications. So let's see what we have here today. And I'm going to take the headset off if there's no song. So the song request is back and working. I'll take my chances. But the situation for today is this kind of situation. I have only the screenshot, but pretty much I open from the button with crappy jacks, small blind calls, everyone checks all the way to the river, and then he checks the river, and I'm wondering, should I bluff or not? The opponent is a bit straightforward. I would assume he would value bet and need most of his strong hands on the turn, and then on the river all the high flushes. And of course I have showdown value. That's the problem. If I had air, it would be quite easy to stab the river. But I beat all the hands besides two pairs and ace and king. Or pocket queens also. I don't beat. So if I bet, I could make him fold or try king, even crappy ace. Even a good ace. Depends. Maybe crappy two pairs, not sure about that. Pocket queen. So there's a lot of hands that I can make him fold. And of course, I thought that before I saw his hand. Now, looking at his hands, that's exactly the hand we want him to fold if we bet. But I was doubting the situation on the river. If my hand was stronger, might be easier decision to check back. If the hand was weaker, might be easier decision just to stab the river. But now with that exact hand, Jack, then 6 of 3 spades, not so sure. And I actually created the hand once on PokerJuice. Decided to do it all over again so you guys can see how the software works, and I can practice it more. Because one of the biggest issues, or if it's even an issue, well, one of the biggest issues with PokerJuice Cloud is that it looks different than the old PokerJuice, which I have been using for years, almost on a daily basis, so very familiar with that old PokerJuice. So it looks different. There's no modules, and there's no range boxes. The syntax is slightly different, and it's just when you have something that you're very used to, and then it changes to a whole new interface, a whole new graphical look. It takes time to get used to. So I need repetitions too. So decided to do it one more time, and I hope I will do it right, so there won't be any problems. So in the old PokerJuice, all the actions were clicked on the left, and then all the calculations were on the right. Now we have left and right, but now left is only a replayer, and then all the actions are inputted in the right. So it's cutoff turn, we click here on the fold. And it doesn't automatically jump to the next position, which was in the old PokerJuice. And I really thought, should I be requesting this from Nikolai and Morten? But then the thing is that now, if we go back, we could add more actions than fold. And that's the beauty of PokerJuice. You create a game tree with different branches. And they are all in the same hand, in the same file. Because in the old PokerJuice, if you wanted to compare, like today we're going to compare what's the EV of a check back, what's the EV of a bet. Then in the old PokerJuice, you have to calculate each one different at different times and write it up and then compare. Now we can do it all in the same file. So if it always would jump to the next player, then if you want to add, let's say, depending how complicated you want to make things, but you could easily have 5 different actions on a player. You could have fold, you could have check, and then you could have bet with 3 different sizings. Or that would be quite nerdy. But 2 different sizes, like in 3-bet pots. On many boards we have small sizing and big sizing, depending on our hand, depending on the board, and so on. So we could easily have 4 actions on a player, and if it every time jumps to the next one, you would always need to go back, and that might create more problems. Hello, Arx Poker. Welcome to watch how PokerJuice Cloud works. So we need to navigate here on the left forward. And then it's button turns, it's our turn. So our hand was Jack, Jack, then 6 with 3 spades. And we raise 100%. That's the only thing we do. And the small blind calls and big blind fold. So I'm going to create the hand first, or the action, and then we go back to the ranges. You could definitely just put here the calling range and so on, but I like to create all the hard work first. So you have the hand, and then you can focus on the ranges. You don't have to jump from ranges to actions to ranges to actions. So then we get to the flop, and where's our hand of today? Ace King 8 with 3 hearts. And here we select the flop, and now I forgot the suit of the king, it's spades. Not sure if it matters, but let's be precise. And then we check, he checks, we checks, we see the turn. Turn is 9 of diamonds. And boom. Once again, he checks, we checks, and river is 4 of hearts. He checks. And then it's up to us. Should we check? Should we bet? And I can already put here the amount. Now I'm trying to figure out, does it matter? Does it matter on what order the actions are? But I'm going to put them here, because the thing is, if we have a checking range, then if we bet, of course now when we have actual hand, it actually doesn't matter, but for opponent you will see that the order of the actions pretty much affects the range, because if we have a raising range, well, you will see it. Why should I explain it now? Because you can see it when we get to there. So we need to define a calling range for him. And let me go back. Let's say that he would raise 8% of times. So we have 3-bet 8% out of position. We can use this one. It could be 10, it could be 6, and that's the power of PokerJuice. Because if you just use Odds Oracle or something, or you use Monker or Vision or whatever. Like in Monker or Vision, he's going to 3-bet pretty much the GTO amount. So if we want to see how the situation changes if he 3-bets tighter or wider, we have to do the whole simulation again, which takes a lot of time. Or if we just use an equity software like Oracle, then if we want to answer the question, what if he 3-bets 15%? Then we have to do all the calculations again. But the power of PokerJuice is that I can come back and change this and then see how it affects the later parts of the hands. So it's very easy to compare things. Then let's say he 3-bets that 8%, and then his small blind calling range is first in 25 minus the 8%. Another thing is that if these are the other way around, then the 3-bet wouldn't be there because it always excludes the upper parts from the bottom parts. And then it says actions do not add up to 100%. That's something you're going to see very often. And I think the term is a bit misleading. It means the game tree is not ready. So actions do not add up to 100% might be that just change it to something. And I'm not sure if we need to define his folding range. We could put it here, because then if we fold, we can see our EV right away. But he's going to call today. And he has 16.62% range. Nice. Then comes the flop. Boom. And he checks. And now we need to define, would he check his whole range or does he have a leading range? And for most players, they don't have a leading range on almost any board. The donks are occasional, not part of your strategy. So he would definitely check everything he has. And we check our hand. Then comes the turn, but now on the turn, once again the question is, does he have a leading range? And now he would definitely bet his stronger hands for value. And once again, we could pretty much give him whatever range we want. But let's start with something. This is how I often use PokerJuice. I don't spend too much time thinking here what would be his betting range. I give him a simplified betting range and see the outcome, and then I can come back and adjust the range and see does it have any effect. But he has the check-in already, so we add bet and make it the top. So now it means that he bets whatever he bets, we define the range here, and then he checks the rest. If these boxes are other way around, first he checks everything, and then he doesn't have anything to bet with anymore. And I would say that 2 pairs is definitely a candidate, and when we scroll down, we get to the 2 pair section. And we have lots of different kinds of comments here. And it's quite easy. 2 pair plus is 2 pair or better. And 2 pair 1 is top 2 pairs, ace king or better. 2 pair 2 is ace 9 or better. 2 pair 3 is ace 8 or better. And 2 pair 4 is king 9 or better, and so on. So then you can have these combo draws like 2 pair and flush draw. And 2 pair 2 plus. I would say that let's give him 2 pair 2 plus. And then 2 pairs with what? Oh. Why can't we add? Damn. Why can't? Oh, we need to. Do we need to actually put it here? Yeah, I think we do. So we can put them all in one box. So 2 pair 2 plus. PokerJuice is here. Nikolai, if you're watching, can I just add all on the same line, or do I need to do like this, that if I want to have 2 pair with the flush draw, I need to put on different box? I honestly don't. This is actually officially the second time I'm using this software to actually go through a hand or situation. So I'm not a master on PokerJuice Cloud. I'm learning, but decided to learn with you guys. So I don't know if you can put them on the same line, but and then I would add 2 pair. I have all these chords here. 2 pair with open ender. But then it needs to be weak 2 pairs, so let's say 2 pair with the wrap, because we have 2 pair 2 plus, so it's ace 9 and ace king already. And now 2 pair on flush draw means weaker with the flush draw, weaker 2 pairs with the flush draw, or weaker 2 pairs with a wrap. I mean, if he has 8-9 jack, then not sure if this player would call, but we can come back differently. So that's his betting range, but in the hand he checks. But now his checking range is only 56% of his hands. And he would bet a lot. And I honestly don't know what the results are, because last time when I made this hand, I just gave him 2 pair 2 plus. Interesting to see. Then comes the river. Now the question is once again, what kind of hands he would lead. Would he bet his whole range, or would he bet some hands? I would say that he would bet for value definitely not flush. And I'm trying to figure out this specific player. If he had a queen high flush, I think he would check call only. So he would only value bet not flush, or he could even check raise that. I don't know about this player, but when the hand is checked all the way, let's say he bets he is not flush. But here he decides to check, and now we have the option to check or bet. And if we do bet, we need to give him the calling range. And first he would probably fold everything except his calling range. Or it's his calling range or raising range. It doesn't really matter, because he's only to call with better hands. So we're definitely not calling a raise. So whether he calls or raises those better hands, it doesn't affect. So there's no point in this specific example to give him a raising range and calling range, because the outcome is the same. If he has a better hand that continues, we're going to lose this bet of 8 no matter what. And let's say he bluff catch with ace 9 or better. Let's use that as a starting point. So now, when we go back to our river options, we can see here now that this box here is our expected stack after what has happened. And if you wonder why on the left we have here 102.17, it's this one. The lower number is the actual stack we have. So before we bet, our stack is 96.5. And now this is one of those important things. PokerJuice, the older PokerJuice, gave you the EV on the top right corner. Hello, Veku. Old PokerJuice gave you the EV number. Now, PokerJuice Cloud doesn't give you EV as a stat. It just shows you the stack. So it's, once again, same thing in different way. You have to get used to it. So now it's our chance to make the river decision. And this is the spot where I was wondering, should I check, should I bet? Annoying hand, because Jack tendencies is exactly there in the middle of everything. If it was, as I said in the beginning, if it was stronger, it would be easier to check back. If it was weaker, it would be easier to bluff. But pocket jacks on that board is kind of nasty, borderline hand. So our stack is 96.5. And then when it's our turn, if we check, our stack goes to 97.53. And this doesn't include the rate. It's an option that was proposed to PokerJuice, Nicola and Morton, and I think it would be nice if you had somewhere just a box where you could enter the percentage, or you have preset like 2.5, 3, 3.54, 4.1, and 5. Because you have rate structure and then you have rate back. And if the rate is 5%, let's say it's 5% uncapped, but you have 50% rate back, then the effective rate is only 2.5%. If you don't have rate back, it's 5%. So if you could just select like from 0 to 5 with half a percentage, 0.5% jumps, that would be awesome. Because now, if we win the hand, we have to pay the rate, which is probably, let's say it's 3 BBs, so the stack would be 94.53 when we win. So on average, probably 96 or something. So it's EV0 to check, and so on. But it would be nice, especially on these tight situations, if the rate is high, it has huge impact. Like on GT Poker, not anymore, but some time ago they had 5% uncapped, 3% uncapped range. So when the pot is pretty high, let's say 200 BBs, then 3% is 6 BB. Yeah. And I don't think, I'm not a coder, but I don't think it should be, I don't know how hard it is just to have a percentage that is discounted from the end when you win. Of course, the problem is that probably the software here, when we check, it just puts our hand equity versus his range. But you only pay rate when you win. So I don't know how hard that is. Like now our equity versus the opponent is 13%. So when we check, it calculates from that. I don't know how it happens. But I don't have to do it. I'm just waiting. If it comes, I'm happy. If it doesn't, it's like the past 20 years. Nothing changes on that part. And now I forgot only. Where were we? Yeah. We can see now when we have built the game tree and gave him the continuation range. Remember, when I put my bet option here, it didn't show the EV, because we have to define how he responds to that bet. If we change this calling or continuation range, then this EV changes too. But with these parameters, when we check, our stack is 97.53 and starting point was 96.5. So it actually, we win 1 BB on average, because sometimes we actually win his hand. But when we bluff, stack goes to 102.70. So it means the EV of a bluff is almost 5 BPs bigger than checking. And that's a pretty big difference even with the rate. So in this spot with these ranges, this should be a quite easy bet. Alright, now we can start to explore. And remember, I could even write it down. Check was 97.5 and bet was 102.17. So I will have them here. So now when I start to change things, I can see how does it affect. And what we can do is, as I said, what if he 3-bets wider? Let's give him 12% raising range. And now the things are rolling. Why nothing is happening? Does it work, or do I always have to select it? Now, if I write $12.00, it seems that it's not working, so I have to select it. Not sure. I tried to type ace-9 plus, but it didn't work. So not sure if that's a feature or if it's just a bug that even if you write the exactly same syntax, it might not work. So now we can see that there's minor changes. Actually, the EV of a bet goes up a little and EV of a check goes down a little. But the difference is like 0.3 BPs. So not a huge deciding factor. But where's our player here? Let's stick with the 8% that we had earlier. But we could let's remove those combo draws. So let's make him a thigh player who only bets ace-9 or ace-king or better. And then we will see that now when he has a bit more flushes in his turn checking range, the EV of a bet goes down a little. So now it goes from 0.2.17 to 0.1.90, so drops 0.3 BPs. Oh, ace-king 9, but not ace-king 9 plus. Alright. So just choose from the drop-down menu at the moment. And that makes sense because when we remove bad to pair with the flush draw from his range, it means he has a bit more flush draws now in his range. So when the flush comes, he has the flush slightly more often. And I know that a lot of people are thinking that I missed the range distribution. I miss it too. It's coming. It's not yet here. But You can work around until it's implemented by just, let's say that he bets. I'm so lazy that I'm not. Oh, I have to type flush here because I'm so. Where's the flush? There. So if we just give him a flush as a range, then here we can see how big portion of his total range that is. And the wheels are rolling. And it's 19.16. So he has the flush 19.16% of the times. So you can work around. We see that he has a nut flush 4.3% of times. So let's say that if he bets, let's change this flush. To king high, queen high. Yeah. So he would bet also queen high flush for value. And then would he bluff a king without anything else? Probably not. All right. Why doesn't it show the amount of our bet? Problem. We have a problem. Why? All right, now our bet has the EV. Did that uncheck thing actually matter that much? So now we can see that if he would value bet queen high flush, our EV goes even more up for the betting. The checking part is pretty much the same. The difference is 0.06 BBs. But the EV of a bet goes up almost 1 BB. And this is, I think this is what makes PokerJuice so great, because if you just use it to check your equity, or if you use it only to check range distribution, how often opponent has something, then I wouldn't say it's a wasted money, but it's wasted resources. Because that you can do with a lot of stuff, but with PokerJuice, it's so easy to explore what I do here. How does the EV of my bluff change when opponent does something else? And that's when you start to learn, like, okay, the wider my opponent value bets the river, the more EV my bluff has. And the tighter he checks, then the less value my bluff have. So if we go back, and we would say, let's say we remove this whole goddamn betting, so he would check even nut flush here to induce a bluff. And definitely he could. And there's a lot of players who would, understanding that I'm going to stab the river very often with these kind of weak hands. So now we can see that the value of the check goes up a little and the value of the bluff goes down. So when you understand these, how does the ranges for my opponent for different actions affect my EV, then you understand the correlation between things. And that's awesome. That's awesome for learning. And then you start to understand the bigger picture. And what if we go and say that he's a loosey-goosey who would 3-bet only pocket aces for starters, and then his calling range is wide as hell. Calling station. And why do we have all these? Weird triangles here. And then we enter the same situation on the river. He's a passive. He could once again check his entire range. Now we're going to see that when he's loose, but his river calling or raising range stays the same, the EV goes down even more. Because now he has stronger hands and more flushes in his range. And now, when he is loose and a bit more passive, now it means that the EV of a check goes up and EV of a bet goes down. And what if on the turn, let's say he tries to check raise everything. So even if he has pocket kings, because aces he can't have, even if he has pocket kings, if he checks those trying to check raise, how does that affect? So ultimate passive calling station. Now we can see that now the tide turns. Checking has more value than bluffing. So if you would think, like, okay, he's passive calling station who has a wide range, he has a ton of air, let's bluff so that he folds that air, then you have a really bad thinking process because you beat his air. You don't want him to fold Jack 10-9. You don't want him to fold pocket tens because you win it even by checking. But now we can see that when we change things, the outcome and the EV of our actions change. And that's the important part. And we could go on forever. Let's make him super tight. Let's make him super loose. Let's make him tight, who bluffs a lot on the turn. Let's make him loose, who value bets thinly on the turn, and so on. And then you can see that how should I adjust? And the thing is that, as explained on the PokerJuice stream last week with Nikolai, PokerJuice doesn't teach you GTO. It doesn't teach you solver strategy. You have different softwares for that. But what PokerJuice teaches you is how to exploit opponents, especially for smaller stakes. And probably even higher, because no one plays solver GTO. Best ones are close to it. But even on PLO 100, PLO 200, when you watch the games, there's a whole bunch of players who are really far from being perfectly balanced, even the Rex. And when people are not playing GTO, it means you can exploit them. And what PokerJuice teaches you is how to exploit. Like here, how does opponent's tendencies affect the EV of our river bet? And when we understand the correlation on what situations, what things make our bet better and what things make our bet worse, then it's easier for you to decide on the game that, okay, versus that normal kind of GTO player, I should do this, but if the opponent is very tight, I should do this. If the opponent is very loose, I should do this. And it's kind of way that solver strategy is defense, exploiting is offense. So PokerJuice is an offensive software. It teaches you the offense, how to exploit opponents. And then when you want to be balanced and protect yourself from better players, that's when solver strategy is a bit more handy. But it assumes that the opponents are playing sort of balanced strategy too. If opponents are unbalanced, like let's say the opponent is maniac, and then you think that, okay, to defend myself from aggression, I should use solver strategy. And that doesn't work. Because solver strategy always assumes that opponent is playing solver ranges, solver frequencies. And when you have maniac, he's not. And that's when PokerJuice comes handy. You can check, okay, the GTO perspective, how often we should bluff catch the river, put it on PokerJuice, widen the opponent's range, make him aggressive, and see what happens to our bluff catching ranges. What happens if we bluff catch tighter, what happens if we bluff catch wider, and so on. So, two different things. I've had questions, should I get PLO Visions or PokerJuice? Or should I invest for Mastermind, or should I invest for PokerJuice? And it's like totally two different things. They do different things. It's like, should I buy pants or should I go for pizza? It depends if you're hungry or if you're missing your pants. It depends. What are your needs? I mean, if you don't have pants and you go for pizza, then you still don't have a pants. So there are two different things who don't correlate with each other that much. I mean, probably the best outcome is to get everything. But PokerJuice does very different things compared to PLO Vision. Or even Mastermind. Or I don't know what else there are. So it's a way different thing. And I would say, if you want to make money in PLO, you probably should put resources in both. Solver work, especially if you aim for PLO 50 and above, where a lot of reps are doing a lot of solver work. So if you don't do it, you kind of give them unfair advantage. But especially if you aim there, then you should put some effort to solver work and then some effort how to exploit opponents. So it teaches you the both, and then when you're playing, you can decide, okay, versus this opponent, should I be balanced or not? I mean, if the opponent is VPIP 100, then why would you balance anything? Opponent is not exploiting you if you're unbalanced, so then if you start to play solver strategy versus that player, you're missing value. But if he's a good rep who plays pretty good balanced poker and can easily exploit if you're unbalanced, then you need to find balance or enough balance to prevent him from crushing you. Just remember, when the hand doesn't go to showdown, he doesn't know what you had. And if the HUD is not available, then pretty much all you have to do is focus that when hands go to showdown and he sees what you have some kind of balance there. So he doesn't see that, okay, every time when you do that, you have a certain hand, more or less. But it's important to know both. And as far as I understood, there's going to be improvements on PokerJuice on a regular basis. There's going to be the range distribution, although you have it already here. I mean, in the old version, you have to type and get some effort. Now you just have to add a box, put in the range, and it shows you how often he has that, and so on. And there were some other new things coming up, like hand history support. Now it supports only PokerStars hands, but they're going to add up all the major sites probably pretty soon. But as you see, creating the hand doesn't take that much. Of course, if you have a multi-way thing, then it might take. And that's actually, if you missed the stream last week, that's a new thing on PokerJuice Cloud, that it handles multi-way situations. In the old one, you had to use the three-way tool, which I had it, but I never used it because it's too much effort to spend 1 minute. Too much effort to spend 1 minute typing the numbers. But yeah, now you can do multi-way streets, and the thing is that the game tree, if you have 3-way or 4-way pot with different actions or opportunities for actions, the game tree will get pretty big and complicated. So I would say that if you can handle it, then by all means do it, but very often when we add the third player, it makes things so complicated. So you wanna probably try and test how it works. But now it's easier to see, let's say we have third opponent, and then we would want to know, should we bluff versus 2? Now it's a lot easier to just add the third player and calculate it. In the old version, without the 3-way tool, you pretty much have to define the fold equity versus either one and then manually calculate how much you have fold equity and compare that to the odds your bluff has, and so on and so on. Now it's easy, just add players. So and what I loved in the old PokerJuice is that even when you're playing a session, you could just take the hand history and paste it there. Like I used it on Run It Once when there was no replayer to use as a replayer. And the pasting of hand history is nice. Then you can just take it from the tracker and put it up there and start calculating. But yeah. If you want to know how should you use PokerJuice, then you can use it for a quick checkout. Was my bluff profitable? Is my bluff catch profitable? That's what I often do on marginal spots. Or should I see bet a flop with total air? How much I have fold equity on certain board with my blockers, without my blockers. And you can check that one thing easily. But then, if you like have a study plan that, okay, today I'm going to focus on studying. And then if you open PokerJuice and just check river equities, it doesn't give you much, but when you do what I did today, that you answer those what-if situations. What if our opponent is different? What if our hand is different? How much blockers affect our EV? Okay, now we decided to check everything, but let's say he would bet nut flush and queen high flush. What if we had a queen of heart blocker? How does that affect? What if we don't have the heart blocker? Well, we could do that right away. Let's give us the jack of clubs. Now I just don't remember what was the number, because I have only those own numbers, but now we have changed the player to totally different ones. But you can see, like, for the blocker effect, that's the thing where people think that, okay, if we have one hard blocker, the chance of opponent having a flush goes down a lot. And that's common mistake. People don't understand how much the blocker actually affects. Or if the straight is on the board and we have the pair to block it, how much it removes straights from the opponent. Sometimes people make really big decisions based on the blockers thinking the opponent cannot have it. But I mean, we can check here that on the river, no, the F doesn't work, so you have to pick it up here. What? Okay, it wasn't F, it's F and a U. All right, so when we don't have a blocker, the opponent has flush here 26% of times, which is around 1 out of 4 times. If we give ourselves that jack blocker, I remember it was 19 or something, now he is VPIP 50. What? Why is that? How is it possible? Are we missing something? Now he has flush. Now it's only F. Why was it FLU in the first? Now he has flush 20 point. Yeah. But it gave me the FLU. Or did it? Or did I make the mistake? But now it's 20.8. But shouldn't it work right away? Alright, now it works. So it was just my wrong syntax. I messed it up. Sorry, PokerJuice. So we can see how the blocker affects here. He has flush 26% of times, but when we give ourselves the jack of hearts, it's around 21. So the difference is 5%. So pretty much forward equity goes up 5%. And then we can see, does it affect if we have the queen of hearts? Not really. What if it's the 5 of hearts? It was 20.8. 20.85. So we can see that the rank of our flush blocker isn't relevant because the opponent has a wide range. So you have to understand when opponent has VPIP 50 or 50% range, it pretty much doesn't matter how high our flush blocker is. But if we go back and then we take away that stuff and we give him this initial amounts of 3-betting 8%, calling with remaining 16-17% of hands, and then we go all the way up to river to see there how often he has the flush. So now with 5 blocker, let's remove the blockers first. Without the blocker, he has flush only 18% of times, which is on the turn he checks everything, yeah. So he has less flushes than with white player. So you have to understand once again that the opponent is tight pre-flop. It means he, oh, now it goes up 21. Yeah, should have waited for the calculations. That's something that I need to figure out, that if we just change, does it do all the calculations, or do we have to sort of go back and go through every step once again? Not sure. But this was 18, now it's 21. Why? Or was it when we had, oh, we had the blocker, it was 18. So without the blocker, it's 21. With queen of hearts, why it's the same? What has changed? How can it be the same? Do I need to uncheck it? Okay. Alright, I'm going to get hang of this. You need to calculate it again. So it doesn't do it automatically. So, I hope I get this right. With the Queen of Hearts, it's 16.5. Without any blocker, it's 21. So once again, 5% different. But now when he is tighter pre-flop, does the rank of the flush card matter? And now we can see it does. With high flush card, the blocker effect is bigger because the opponent's range is tighter. He doesn't have so many small flushes in his range. So once again, you can learn that, okay, versus wide range, the rank of the blocker, flush blocker, doesn't really matter as long as we have one. But versus tight player, the rank matters. The higher the rank, the bigger the blocker effect is. Like 5 of heart blocker effect is only 3%. While the Queen of Heart has the blocker effect of 5%. So from 3 to 5, that's plus 40% more for the blocker effect from 3 to 5. So these are the things that you can't just memorize everything. You have to understand the correlation of things. And especially versus non-GTO players. If you only work with vision and solver, you probably will become really good in analyzing what the range distribution for my opponent is when he plays the solver strategy and solver ranges. But the problem is that, like there on the small blind, his calling range should be even tighter. It should be like 20% or 18% minus almost 10% 3-bet. So it's very tight. But in real life, people play wider ranges. So when you understand how slightly wider range affects your strategy, you can increase your EV and win rate. And when you understand how to change versus really wide ranges. And one of the problems with solver is that it cannot handle bad strategies. It's impossible. You can force certain frequencies, like you can make a simulation where opponent calls 80% preflop. But still, solver forces the player to play 80% of hands, but it will calculate the best possible EV for that strategy. So it kind of finds the GTO of playing 80% of hands, which means that it's going to play still perfect pre-flop, it's going to play perfect post-flop, and it also knows exactly all the opponent's ranges. So solver always plays perfectly because it knows exactly the opponent's strategies, it knows exactly the opponent's ranges, and then adjusts and finds the equilibrium. But VPIP80 players don't play perfectly. So to get those really, I mean, then even if you force certain post-flop frequencies, still solver gives him the perfect strategy with those frequencies, which is very far from reality. So I would say how to learn how to exploit those VPIP80 players, PokerJuice does tremendous job compared to solver. Because then you can give him the ranges he actually would have. Well, you should know if you play with those players what kind of things they do, and you could easily find how to exploit. Should we start to semi-bluff more? Should we value bet wider? How wide can we value bet versus calling station? And so on. Like here, let's say the opponent is Kyyberi player. The question would be, what's the worst hand we would value bet here? And expected thing on the top right in green. Well, no, I can't because I have no idea what it is. I think it's when we All right, it's the same as in here. It's your expected stack with the action. So it's pretty much the same thing we have here, here, and here. I don't know why it, well, there might be a reason why it is there. But, yeah, it's the same as they have in here. But if it cannot calculate it, then it's NA. So, that's how you can use. And that's how I use it, or probably not using that much anymore, but in the past I used the old PokerJuice a lot to explore some thresholds versus different players, how wide I can do value bets, or how often opponent has the hand he's representing, how to exploit opponent. Same situation versus tight player versus wide player versus aggressive player. How should I adjust, and so on and so on. Oh, horny bitch. Hyvää iltaa. Yeah, I don't know if it's user friendly. I miss the old PokerJuice. But yeah, it's just it's normal for humans to resist any changes. I want the old things back. Yeah, we all miss 90s. I miss the video cassettes and C cassettes. Yeah, but the thing is that now it's totally web-based, which means that you don't need Oracle, which was an issue for many players. I know a lot of players who would love to use PokerJuice, but they don't want to spend $90 on Oracle. So you don't need any other softwares, and you don't need a powerful computer. I mean, yeah, for me it's not the problem because I have my supercomputer, but for a lot of players, making like peel and stack off in old PokerJuice with bigger sample size, it took a lot of time. And I was thinking that, yeah, offline is fine, but I think in modern world, you will have internet access. I don't know about the rest of the world, but yeah, in Finland, everyone of 5 years or older have unlimited access to internet 24/7. Because we have in Finland on every mobile phone unlimited data. Pretty much for everyone, because it's cheaper than limited. I mean, if you buy a prepaid data pack, it costs more than 1 month of unlimited. That's the weird thing. So everyone has unlimited access to internet. And the thing is, you could use it on mobile phone. I haven't tried, but it would be interesting to see with some bigger phones with higher resolution that how does it look like. Would be interesting, because then, I mean, normally it would be hard, but when I have my Note 9, I have the pen. So with the pen, it might be actually worth. You could do studying while traveling. But yeah, it's a problem if you live in a country where you don't have access to internet always, or if you go to a place where there's no internet access, like you go to the wilderness, but you would like to study there, and so on. But I think the pros are better than the cons. So there's more good things from being web-based than bad things. There are some specific situations where standalone would have been better. I mean, I've used the old PokerJuice a lot without internet connection. If I have my laptop somewhere and I have free time, I could use PokerJuice to work with open tracker with hands, working PokerJuice without putting up the internet connection. Like when you're traveling on the other countries. Like, if I would go to Spain, I don't have unlimited internet access, so I wouldn't want to spend my data on PokerJuice. And Spain is a good example. They have Wi-Fi's there, but they never work. I mean, I haven't seen fully functional Wi-Fi on Spain, on any hotel, and I've been in few. It always lags. There's disconnections all the time, so at that point it kind of sucks. So I don't know how much resources would PokerJuice Cloud take if you get a standalone version. But yeah, there are situations where the standalone version would be better, but then there's a lot of situations where the web-based, cloud-based is a lot better. And the nice thing is that you can save hands there. I think, as far as I understand, you can save hand histories and your custom ranges, and then you could use it basically on any computer anywhere, which is an upgrade too. So everything has the benefits and then the problems, but I think the benefits outweigh the problems by far. All right. There's 1 hour of PokerJuice, one situation, and a lot of what ifs and discussion. I enjoy the software, and I think that I wouldn't say it's impossible to learn PLO without PokerJuice, but as I have worked with hundreds of beginners or people who are not, I work with total beginners too, but people who have played PLO more or less recreationally, they have some kind of idea about some concepts, but they don't really have a strategy. Then I found out that PokerJuice is very essential software. And the biggest thing in learning curve is when you start to practice range definition for the opponent. Then every time you analyze a hand with PokerJuice, you have to define opponent's range. Or your range too if you don't use the actual hand. But like today, we have to define opponent's range for each street. And the more you do it, the better you become at defining range, and you will get those sort of hidden repetitions. And if we think about how to learn skills, and in poker we want our range definition to be automatic, so you don't really have to think on the river, you sort of know the opponent's range. Not precisely, that would be hard, but you have a pretty good idea about your opponent's range. And to make it automatic, you need repetitions, just like in any other skill. And the only way to get repetitions is to do them. So with PokerJuice, every time when you analyze hand, when you have to think here, okay, what's his river range, on the flop, what's his checking range, on the turn, what's his checking betting ranges, you get repetitions on range definition. And then that will make you a good player, because I strongly believe that you cannot be a profitable long-term winner in PLO unless you can define your opponent's range. Or it's possible, but it's very hard for most people, because everything we do post-flop is based on the opponent's range, or should be. Like here, reason why I was thinking about betting is I understand my opponent's range, and I understand how the actual hand was this one. We had pocket jacks, and I understand how pocket jacks do versus some parts of my opponent's range. If I had no idea about my opponent's range, I had no idea, should I bluff, should I check, why should I bluff, why should I check? And it makes the post flop really impossible. Then we are just clicking buttons instead of having strategy. And one of the best ways to learn range definition is to play with PokerJuice. There are methods to study it, but on my experience, it's based on hundreds of people who are motivated to learn. 99% of players don't do the work. Because without PokerJuice, it's kind of boring. It's not fun, but playing with PokerJuice, it's fun, and you will get those repetitions without even understanding it. So that's why PokerJuice is so awesome software. You get the repetitions. And you start to learn how to exploit opponents. You start to understand how their range is constructed. You start to understand the concept of game tree, how our decision affects the later streets, and so on. So, in my mind, especially now when the price went down, now it's 19 a month, you don't need much Oracle. I mean, if you are in we still have time. I mean, this is a question I've had a lot of times, a lot of questions about, should I buy PokerJuice or should I get Mastermind? And then the answer is, it really depends on where you are at your learning curve and PL path. Mastermind is based on solver strategy, and to understand Mastermind content, you need to have a good understanding of range thinking and how different ranges affect each other, how actions affect our ranges, and so on. But if you are at the point where you don't really define ranges and the whole concept of range versus range is a bit confusing, then probably most of the things on Mastermind goes way beyond your head. And if you buy Vision, pretty much everything goes over your head, because it doesn't even explain. Vision just shows you numbers. But in Mastermind, they even explain things. So if you are on that point, then PokerJuice is going to help you a lot in your learning path. Then also, even if you know the basics, you understand how solver works, you understand the basic concept, then if you want to know, okay, I know how solver plays this spot, how should I adjust to exploit my opponents more? I want to increase my win rate. I'm making 2 PPs per 100, but there's a lot of opponents who are deviating from solver strategy, which opens the door for exploiting. I want to know how to exploit them. Once again, PokerJuice gives you a pretty good tool to start exploring that, analyzing that. Like value betting on the river. Let's give our opponent the range and let's start to see how wide can we make a profitable value bet. And then you will start to see the thresholds. Same situation versus title player. The threshold for value betting is way different. So you can increase your win rate by adjusting to your opponent's tendencies. So it doesn't matter where you are in your learning curve. There's a things PokerJuice can help you with, but it's just slightly different. But I would say that I've done range definition for a long time. And I would say that the biggest thing in my poker learning curve was when I started to analyze hands on Poker Strategy Forum. It was slightly before PokerJuice, actually. But when I started to analyze hands, I did 20 to 40 hands a day. And in each hand, I have to think about the opponent's range, and I had to sort of explain my thinking process. And if I said, okay, you should raise river, I have, what's the word? I have to, I know there's a good word, I just can't find it. It was like I have to back up my reasoning, my strategy. So I have to explain why it's plus EV in my mind. And then when I did 20 to 40 hands a day, you will see that in a week I had hundreds of repetitions of range definition, thinking process and justifying different strategies. I have to, on every hand, I have to think, what if, okay, on the river we have options to call or raise. What happens if we call? What happens if we raise? And I didn't understand back then that all those repetitions increase the level of the skill more towards automatic. And when those basic range definitions, pot odds, I had to calculate pot odds and EV on every hand. When those go to automatic, it opens up resources to make even complicated strategical decisions. And in poker you have time bank. If you have 30-second time bank, if defining range takes 25 seconds, you only have 5 seconds to use that information. Does work. Or calculating pot odds takes 40 seconds. Then 30-second time bank makes it impossible to use that skill. So I got the repetition. So even now, when I have to define ranges, it works in my favor. It just increases the level of range definition, makes it a bit more precise, a bit more faster. And the thing is, poker is like any other form of skills. In football, the best players, they practice shooting every day. They know how to shoot, they know how to pass, but they practice it every day because they want to make it even better. Decrease the variance in their skill using, make it more automatic, better and better. So even if you are a good player, you know all the stuff, when you use PokerJuice, you get repetition. And more repetitions is better. That's what Negreanu should have said. It's not more rate is better, but more repetitions is better. Because it increases the level. So, wherever you are in your PLO path, PokerJuice can help you. It's just in slightly different ways. Alright, I think it's time to wrap it up and just go to do something else. I will upload the video to YouTube, so in case you missed the beginning or you want to go back to see how the hand was constructed and so on, it will be on YouTube later today, publicly visible on my channel, youtube.com/Kyyberi. So you will see there. Thanks for joining, and thanks for PokerJuice coming up, clarifying a couple of things, and thanks Arx Poker. I will see you later. I will do poker streams as soon as I can, probably goes to next week, because there's football finals this weekend, so I might be watching a lot of football and maybe drinking some beers. And then on Sunday I will have a hangover. But I hope to start regular streaming, mostly probably on weekdays at around this time, or 1 or 2 hours later. But I hope to pick up some scheduled streams like on every Tuesday or every day or whatever. So, hope you enjoyed. I will see you on the next stream. Make sure you follow the channel or follow the Twitter, because there you can see tweets every time when I go online. Thanks and bye-bye. Alright, there's the following. Thank you. And put the notifications on, you will get an email when I get online.